Hey guys, today is the big day. The Nissan is finally leaving the garage and going to get the engine harness, wiring and ECU done. I've already been working on it this morning, so wheels are on, back and on the front. They are just some, I think R33 GTT or whatever random wheels came on the car when I first bought it. It's also got a steering wheel in it now. Just a horrible fake OMP wheel that came in one of the MX-5s I've had. I do have a nice Nardi to go in it, but that can go on at a later date. The boot is also full of stuff is going to be needed, so we've got like injectors, fuel pump, that sort of stuff. I do have to move some MX-5s. I'm hoping I can get away with just moving the burgundy one, because that green one's got a very flat tyre and a very flat battery, but we'll see what happens. I think the truck is going to come in about an hour or so. So got a fair bit to do before he gets here, because obviously the car is still in the air, so just get on with it before he gets here and is waiting for me. Oh no, I think this jack
This wheel's not on the ground. This wheel's about half a mil off the ground.
That was really heavy. Didn't obviously do that alone, but moved the car out of the garage, out to here, and then quickly put the grey MX-5 in the garage, because that is going to have some welding done to it and some undersealing. Whilst that thing is away for a week or so, then I have to push this back in here because we need to head out for like 10 minutes, but don't really want to leave the car out on the road for obvious reasons. Bonnie, my burgundy MX-5, is gonna just live out here for like 10 minutes whilst we head off to go do some stuff. A recovery driver is on his way. He should be here at about 4, so we've got a little while. But yeah, very exciting. Car is actually on the ground for the first time in 4 months, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so the car is now on the trailer. The guy's going to follow me. They're about 20 minutes away. Really excited to see this car hopefully run in the next week or so. Don't know if it's going to be driving in the next week or so, because there's a few bits I'm struggling to find for it, but fingers crossed. See when we get there. Hey guys, and the car is here. It got delivered yesterday, but I ran out of time for any filming, so literally got dropped off the trailer and then rolled in, and that was it. So the car is here at ASD Tuning for the next probably week. It's going to be getting a new engine harness, a max ECU installed, battery cables, a bunch of other stuff is going on, because as you can see, engine not completely done yet, but definitely getting there. At the moment I'm doing some work on getting my ECU mounted, because I was meant to do that before and didn't. Not going to be able to see in here because it's very dark, but that black void is my ECU. We'll have a look over at what Jake's doing now, and I'm sure he can tell you a bit more about what the plan is and all that sort of good stuff. Okay, so I wanted to quickly introduce you to Jake here at ASD Tuning, who's going to be doing all the work on my car. I bought my ECU, all the wiring stuff, all my sensors, all from him, because he just has everything in stock. So if you need any of that stuff, please go over and check him out.
Thank you.
He's going to give us a quick run through of the plan for today, and then also the plan for the next couple of days to get the car up and running.
So we're just in the process of cutting down the coolant hoses because it's an aftermarket rad and they don't quite fit in the stock location. But once we've got the coolant system all plumbed up, we'll carry on, we'll build up the intake, get the filters on, essentially get everything bolted to the engine in the way. That way when we run our initial rope harness to mock up the wiring loom, we know where everything's going to be, where everything's going to sit, and how to mount everything nicely. From there we can start building the harness with the ECU mounted in position, which is usually, depends on what level of harness you do, but it can be anywhere from a 7-hour process to all the way up to 30-40 hours. So we'll start that. We've got to get our battery cables mounted in, the battery in the boot, and pretty much all that.
Okay, to give you a quick update on how things are getting on, it's got colder, so I put a hoodie on, unimportant. Coolant lines are still happening. I cannot find any diagrams online, so I'm having to watch like random videos, go on forums. Still not majorly helpful, but we are making progress, which is good. More spaghetti has been added. I got my ECU mounted. Not brilliant, but functional. Do need to 3D print a spacer to go there, but yeah, ECU is in and out the way, which is, I guess, another step forward. You would have seen by now probably, or you're about to see, that Jake is making like a blank and also adapter for that, because that would have, looks like some like idle air control valve stuff that we don't need anymore, which is part of the kind of benefit of going for a standalone and going for e-throttle, but I'm sure he can tell you about that later. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit when we have another update, which is probably going to be more coolant hoses that I don't know where they're going.
So what you've seen me just make is a manifold blanking plate. So originally the CA18s had a intake air control valve because it was on cable throttle. So that was the way of adjusting how much air goes into the engine based on its coolant temperature. So what we're doing is we're retrofitting an e-throttle. So we no longer need all that control valves and everything, so we've blanked off the 2 little holes here, but we've added a takeoff for manifold pressure because all Max ECUs come with a built-in manifold pressure sensor. So we'll run a hard line from here to the ECU in the car, and then that's the quick way of measuring manifold pressure, and we'll use that on all our fuel tables and ignition tables as a reference.
Okay, so it's the next day. We were working on the car until about 10 o'clock or so last night, although not really on anything too exciting. We basically found an issue where as you turn the engine over, it seemed like the timing belt was slipping forward, which is not ideal. So we basically took that all off, cleaned everything, reseated it, and it seems to not be doing it anymore. We turned it over a bunch of times, but just gonna keep an eye on it. But I think the plan for today now is to try and kind of at least get an idea of the wiring loom. So Jake will explain that later, but I think the plan is to make a rope loom that's basically going to show us where everything is going to connect to. I've also started running the battery cable. So if anyone has watched any of my old videos, you would have saw that I broke an R53 Mini Cooper S. I actually took the battery cable out of that because in those the battery is located in the boot. So the cable is really long and turned out to be almost the perfect size for an S13, which is weird. So battery cable, you can see, yep, red cable here, runs underneath the brake booster there, then goes into the wheel well, which is impossible for you to see, goes into the cabin through the firewall, then runs, you can see, yep, down here, along all under here, where you normally have like other cables running. Goes there, goes up behind that panel, through here somewhere, and then goes into the boot where the battery is going to be located. Battery box is going to be ordered today because that is one of the many other parts I forgot to order first time round, but that needs to come back out so Jake can crimp some proper ends on it for me. And then I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing after that, probably just more boost pipes, coolant pipes, random bits and pieces that would basically stop the car from running once all the wiring has been done. Yeah, let's get on with it.
So as you've seen, we've fitted the intake manifold, the fuel rail, all the boost pipes, and all the coolant pipes. So we figured out where everything goes, what's going to get in our way, and now we can begin mocking up the rope loom. The rope loom typically is how we're going to figure out the lengths of where all our components are and the distance from the ECU to them. That way we can start mocking up the entire loom without running wires over the top and damaging them. We'll just use it out of rope and we'll throw it onto our wiring harness board, which we can then use to actually start designing the loom, making sure we've got every component labeled out and ready. So we've got our firewall grommet down here. We'll put the rope through initially. This is where it's going to come from the ECU. The ECU sits right underneath the glove box to the side. So we'll just feed pretty much quite an excess of rope through there so we can work with it on the other side. What we want to do is kind of figure out how we're going to get it over, because the first item is our coil packs. So our coil packs will be somewhere around there. And so we want to figure out what the run is, where we can secure. There's a flange up here, so we could probably P-clip through and secure the loom coming up. This brings it away from the turbo and all the heat. You also notice this hard line, this manifold hard line here. This is our manifold pressure. This goes straight to the ECU because the ECU has a built-in map sensor. So we're gonna run this along the loom and through the same grommet because it leads to a tidier install. So it'll look something like that, tucked out the way. And then we can start putting cutting our rope here and splicing off to our 4 coils, and then we'll continue this way towards our 4 injectors, coolant temp sensor, the throttle body that's just fallen because we don't have M7 bolts. Weird size, I know. That's not going to stay. It might stay. There we go. So we'll have our coolant temp sensor here, our E-throttle here, so we can probably run along this way quite tidily. We've got a boost pipe here where we can put an intake temp sensor right before, so that's where we finish on that side. Nissan and the early engines, they use this thing called a CAS. So instead of a normal crank sensor down here and a cam sensor up here, you have a CAS, which is like a combined cam and crank sensor, and it drives off the cam. So we'll have to run our loom across this way to the CAS, which is on the front cover. You can't see it now, but you'll see it at a later point. So as you can see, we've finished our rope loom. So we've got all our coils, our injectors, crank/cam sensor, our lambda sensor. That should pretty much be all our temperatures, but that's pretty much everything that's important on this build. We'll get it mocked up on the pegs, and that'll give us all the correct lengths that we need to work with. And then from there we can start dropping our harness over the top. Now this works for standard looms where we're not concentrically twisting and it's not motorsport and it's not sealed. If we were doing a motorsport loom, we would still mock up to get our lengths, but then we'll move over to the bench where we can clamp between the vise and figure out all our layers and our design from there. But we're not, or are we? Let's do it. Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, so the rope loom is done. As Jake explained, the reason for doing a rope loom is basically so you can make sure that the finished product is the best quality possible. Everything lines up nicely, and then putting it on the board like this means that when you heat shrink it, it should all kind of form into the correct shape so that when you lay it in the bay, everything just looks nice. It's really exciting to see the car making so much progress so quickly. It's starting to look like an actual car. I am going to leave this video here for now, otherwise it's just going to be way too long if I do all of this in one long part. Obviously the end goal for the next couple of videos is getting this thing running, driving, MOT'd and back on the road after 4 and a bit years of my ownership and its last MOT in 2008. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please stick around to see Swamp Car finally get back on the road. I'll see you all next time.
Eternity later.